Chapter 27. Ben awoke as water splashed his face. He choked and coughed as he gasped for air. His head throbbed with pain, and his stomach knotted up uncomfortably as he opened his eyes and tried to make sense of the spinning light and shadow. A hand pressed a cup to his lips. He closed his eyes and drank the cool, clear water. The fluid calmed his stomach, and the dizziness stopped. He opened his eyes again to see Molly with a concerned look on her face. He forced a smile. "Did we make it?" he asked. "Yes," she answered. "What now?" asked Ben. "I'd like to head back to the lake," said Molly. "I changed your bandage, but I think you will be safer by the lake." "All right," said Ben. "Can you stand up?" asked Molly. "I think so," said Ben as he sat up. He winced as he tried to stand. "Careful," said Molly with concern as she helped prop him up. He slowly began moving. "Thank you," he said as he forced a smile. "Are you sure you're up for this?" asked Molly. "I think so," replied Ben with a smile. In spite of his throbbing head, he felt better as he started moving. After a few moments, Molly cleared her throat. "So, Mr. Smith," she said. "Call me Ben," said Ben with a smile. "All right, Ben," she said in a slightly more relaxed tone. "Did you hear what that acolyte said before you passed out?" "Well," said Ben, "that's a grim topic." "I'm sorry," said Molly. "It's okay. I recall something about human sacrifice. He said that even divine keys use the power of human sacrifice," said Molly in a concerned tone. "You don't think that's true, do you?" "I don't think so," replied Ben, "but I also know better than to think that the power in them is free. Everything has a cost." "What do you mean?" asked Molly. "A farmer must plant, cultivate, and care for his crops," said Ben, "and in exchange for his effort, he harvests food. A miner digs into the earth. In exchange for his effort, he obtains precious metals. A blacksmith heats and shapes iron, and in exchange he obtains tools or utensils. A cooper or a baker or a butcher or any other profession is the same." "You're saying that there had to be some sacrifice to generate the power in these keys?" asked Molly. "I don't think it was human life," said Ben, "but a life was given." "You're referring to Michael," said Molly. "Then why did the demon worshippers need to sacrifice humans?" asked Molly. "Why didn't the life of their archdemon give them power?" "I don't think their archdemon is dead," said Ben with a frown. "If there was some archdemon still alive, then why wouldn't he come back to take control of his worshippers?" asked Molly. "I think he is imprisoned," said Ben. "At least that's what I saw when I first obtained my divine key." Molly thought about what Ben had said. She was still filled with doubts about the purpose of the key. If Michael had succeeded, then why make the keys at all? Perhaps Michael knew that Archdemon's hand would form when Sarah Hawkins found that severed hand. Certainly the other key-bearers had accepted Archdemon's hand as their main opponents. On the other hand, the Council of Nine had operated under the assumption that there were only 9 keys, and that Jennifer Cedar, as absent-minded as she seemed, had divulged the important elements of their situation. Only Ben, and now Molly, knew that there were in fact 10 divine keys, and that Jennifer may have been missing a critical element. Was the actual archdemon still a threat? "I never thanked you," said Ben as he cleared his throat. "I never thanked you for saving me, Miss Patterson." The statement took Molly off guard. She looked up into Ben's eyes and smiled. She felt her cheeks grow a bit warm. She had always envisioned a tall and handsome man coming to her rescue in her personal romantic fantasies, but his genuine gratitude was appealing, even though she had been the one to rescue him. "It's the least I could do after you waved a gun in my face," said Molly with a coy smile. Ben's face turned red in shame. "About that," he said as he looked at the ground. "Don't mention it," whispered Molly as she helped him move ahead. There was an awkward silence that prevailed for the remainder of their journey back to the lake. Birds chirped and butterflies fluttered in between the branches of trees as they slowly emerged on the shore of the lake. The breeze made the surface of the lake dance as it reflected the light of the sun, and both Molly and Ben squinted to reduce the glare as they waded into the cool water. "Wash that wound," instructed Molly. Ben nodded as he removed the blood-soaked bandage that had been wrapped around his injury. "I dropped my pack over there," said Ben as he winced. "There's a pan inside. We can boil the bandages and reuse them." Molly nodded and went toward the pack. Within a few minutes, Molly had built a fire and was boiling the bandages. After giving them some time to dry, Molly helped wrap Ben's wound. They smiled at one another nervously. "I think I'll go gather some food," said Molly at last as she got to her feet. Ben nodded. "Would you like me to help?" he asked. "No," she replied. "Get some rest." Molly smiled and pulled a stray lock of hair behind her ear as she walked into the woods. Perhaps it was the fresh bandage, or perhaps it was the smile that Molly had given him, but Ben was obviously feeling much better. He took some line and a small lure from his pack and waded into the water to fish. After several attempts, he was successful in pulling a bass up. He brought his catch to the shore and returned to the water to catch another. It took longer, but at last he was able to pull a second fish. He grinned as he brought it up to the shore and retrieved a knife to prepare it for cooking. It took some time with his injured arm, but he was finally able to get the fish ready and heat them over the hot coals in the fire. The fish meat was sizzling as Molly returned with a pouch filled with herbs and berries. She had a surprised look on her face. "I thought you were supposed to be getting rest," she scolded. Her voice let him know she was not all that upset. "There are few things as restful as fishing," said Ben with a smile. She shook her head and returned the smile. "You need to be careful, Ben," she said. "That wound could get infected." "Are you worried about me, Miss Patterson?" he asked with a smile. "Call me Molly," she said. "And yes, don't be reckless." "All right, Molly, I'm sorry," he said. "Perhaps I can make it up to you with the catch of the day." She smiled as he retrieved the pan from the coals and set it on the sand. "I'm also sorry that I only have one pan and one fork." Molly laughed. "I guess you probably haven't had to share meals in some time," said Molly. "It's true," said Ben with a smile. Molly came close and placed the berries and herbs in the pan. He smiled and retrieved his fork from the pocket of his pack. The two of them sat down near the pan and prepared to eat the fish. Ben handed the fork to Molly. "You first," he said. She shook her head. "You caught the fish," she protested. "I insist," said Ben. Finally, she took the fork and cut out a piece of fish. It was surprisingly well cooked, and as hungry as she was, it smelled delicious. She took a bite and smiled. "This is really good," she said after swallowing. Ben smiled. "I'm glad you enjoy it," he said. She took the fork and got another piece of meat and a berry, then offered it to Ben. He ate a bite and smiled. "Very good," he said. They continued taking turns until they had eaten everything. "So what do you typically do after a delicious meal?" asked Molly as she looked into Ben's eyes. "Honestly," he said, "it's not too glamorous. I just go to sleep." "Well, I'm not ready for sleep yet," said Molly, "so think of something else." Ben rubbed his chin and thought for a few moments. Finally, he smiled and began singing. De colores, se visten los campos en la primavera. De colores, son los pajaritos que vienen de afuera. De colores, es el arco iris que vemos lucir. Y por eso los grandes amores de muchos colores me gustan a mí. Y por eso los grandes amores de muchos colores me gustan a mí. Molly smiled as he continued singing. His voice was clear and strong, and though she had no idea what any of the words meant, she ignored the warnings in her mind that cautioned her she hardly knew this man. She let her heart pull her along. Though she could not identify the exact moment, by the time he stopped singing, she was in love with him. She pulled herself close to him and looked into his eyes. She was certain he felt the same for her. "Ben," she whispered. He pulled her head slightly toward his and gently kissed her lips. She kissed him back, and for several minutes they were oblivious to anything but one another. Of course, it was in those several minutes that another group of David Sawyer's demon-worshipping acolytes saw their opportunity to capture and kill the two of them.